Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take your information pile and, well, we dig deep for the insights. Today we're plunging into a really intriguing bit of naval history. It's a story about clandestine alliances and the surprising start of a legendary Special Forces unit. You've given us some detailed material looking at the post-World War II era, specifically how former Italian naval special forces played this crucial, though unofficial, role in setting up a key military capability for a new nation.
That's exactly right. And what's fascinating here is how these huge geopolitical shifts and, frankly, urgent needs created this unexpected link, a bridge, really, between former enemies and a nascent power. We'll be exploring the who, what, and why of it all. We're going to extract the precise details from the material you provided to understand, the strategic importance and the lasting impact.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Our mission today is really to give you a clear, detailed report on these events. We want to focus on the precision of the facts, tracing how it all happened. So the material tells us that right after World War II, starting around 1946, agents from a specific intelligence organization were in Italy, and they were, well, desperately looking for equipment, specifically from the Italian 10th MAS unit for naval sabotage missions.
Yeah, and that's a critical starting point. It immediately raises the question, why that unit? Why the 10th MAS? Well, the sources show the 10th MAS was famous for its naval assault expertise during the war, their gear, their know-how. It was incredibly valuable. And central to this whole effort was a woman named Ada Serini. She was a key Zionist representative in Italy, born into a wealthy Roman family, emigrated to Palestine way back in 1928, but she returned in 1945. And then she became responsible for her organization's foreign branch right there in Italy.
And here's where it gets really interesting, quite audacious, actually. In June 1946, she goes straight to the Italian Navy's intelligence service. She actually meets with Captain Agostino Colosi, the chief of secret information services. Imagine how delicate those unofficial talks must have been. And she's asking not just for people to operate refugee ships, but also for instructors. Instructors for commando training in sabotage a field where, let's face it, the Italians had really excelled.
Absolutely. But given the political sensitivities, official military personnel just couldn't be directly involved. It was too risky. So the solution, as the material explains, was pretty clever. Employ former military members, guys from Italian assault units like the 10th MAS and Maria Salto. Captain Colosi tasked another captain, Nino Budazzoni. He was an ex-battalion commander who'd become director of a well-known Sabaclia company to find the right people. Discreetly, of course.
And we're not talking about just any former soldiers here. These were real specialists, right? Top tier. The sources mention names like Captain Gio Calderoni, Lieutenant Nicola Conte, he was an SLC operator, the human torpedoes, he trained the underwater guys, and maybe most importantly, Chief Petty Officer Fiorenzo Capriotti. He was a former pilot of those explosive motorboats, the MTMs, Motoscafi Turismo Modificati. Those boats had some big successes, like sinking the cruiser York Itsuda.
Capriotti, yeah, he turned out to be absolutely fundamental. He quickly reached an agreement. He would go and instruct a group of operators in Israel on how to use these specific explosive motorboats, the exact ones the 10th MAS had used. So this is a direct transfer of very specific, very valuable operational knowledge.
Okay, so they've got the instructors lined up. But what about the actual assault craft, the MTMs themselves? The material says a commander named Volodya Izkovits managed to find an old MTM down in Livorno and then tracked down the original manufacturer CABI Catania up in Milan.
And this meeting was, well, truly providential. It's 1948. Izkovits finds the company owner, engineer Giustino Cattaneo, and the company is literally on the verge of bankruptcy. So Izkovits makes a proposal. Buy 30 explosive motorboats in 3 batches plus spare parts. It was about 50 million lire in immediate revenue. It essentially saved the company. This isn't just a sale. It was a lifeline that resurrected a critical capability.
Amazing. So by June 1948, Capriotti arrives in Haifa. He's using an alias, Mr. Katz, from Romania, and he's introduced to 12 young men. These guys are going to be the first group of MTM assault pilots. One of them, Yohei Fisher, later known as Yohaj Ben Nun, he takes the lead, and he later becomes Chief of Staff of the Israeli Navy from 1960 to 66. Quite a trajectory.
Indeed. Then, in July 48, the first batch of those CABI motorboats arrives in Caesarea. This leads straight to forming a special naval group called B-10. They start intense training, even using the Sea of Galilee, and they modified a corvette, the Mosses, specifically to carry and launch these MTMs for operations.
Right, so this all builds up pretty quickly, and it culminates in early October 1948, right in the middle of the Arab-Israeli War. On October 22nd, 3 armed MTMs and a recovery boat are loaded onto the Ma'oz, the target, the Egyptian Navy. They were apparently getting ready to resupply their troops who were encircled down in Gaza. High stakes.
Extremely high stakes. And at 2 a.m. on October 23rd, the mission goes ahead. And the very first action at Gaza is, well, devastatingly successful. They sink the Egyptian flagship, the Emir Farouk, and also a minesweeper. The material is very specific on this. Yohai Ben Nun sank the minesweeper, Salman Abramov hit the El Emir Farouk, and Yaakov Vardi also hit the flagship. This mission, the sources tell us, was strategically vital. It relieved pressure on Israel's coast and allowed their army to eventually conquer the Gaza Strip.
Wow. That's incredible. A direct result of this clandestine training and equipment transfer. It really speaks to the effectiveness of these units right out of the gate. What were the immediate consequences to the bigger picture stuff?
Well, politically, this success had immediate repercussions. The British government lodged some strong complaints with Italy. Why? Because wreckage recovered from the attack clearly showed the Italian origin of the assault boats. Can't really hide that. So this led to a temporary block, Italy stopping sales of military vessels to Israel for a time. Although, interestingly, as the source notes, this didn't stop the British themselves from selling their own destroyer to the Israelis later on.
Politics.
Right. So, okay, the surface assault capability is proven, it's working. But what about underwater? That was part of the original goal too, wasn't it?
It was, but finding actual underwater vehicles like the SLCs was really difficult because of post-war requisitions and controls. So in 1950, they started a new phase. Fiorenzo Capriati again, this time with Izakar Haimovich, who was head of the Israeli Embassy's Economic Commission in Rome. They organized a technical study in Lugano, Switzerland, and they brought in engineer Guido Cattaneo. Now, he was the son of the CABI founder, and he was a former 10th MAS officer himself. He led the design work for new underwater vehicles. So the same company again, CABI Cattaneo. They provided the MTMs, and now they're designing the next generation of underwater craft. The material says the first projects were developed in Milan during 1950, components shipped for assembly in Israel in 51, and they were testing by early 52.
Exactly. And in parallel, remember Lieutenant Nicola Conte. From 1949 onwards, he was already training operators for these future underwater vehicles. So by July 20th, 1949, the surface unit, B-10, was formally merged with this developing underwater group. And that merger gave birth to the unit known as Shayetet 13.
Shayetet 13. That's the name we know today, S-13, the People of Silence, a really highly secretive, very specialized unit.
And its impact, even back then, was significant. Interestingly, the experience gained in Israel developing and testing these new underwater craft experience Italy couldn't get because of post-war restrictions actually helped CABI Cattaneo. They developed new ideas. The material even notes that when the Italian Navy came calling for new designs in 1952, CABI used the vehicles built for the Israelis as their starting point. You can apparently see the similarities comparing models in the Haifa Naval Museum and the one in Varignano, Italy. A sort of feedback loop.
That's fascinating. And Shayetet 13, of course, it continues to operate today, doesn't it? Sea, land, air.
Yeah.
Playing a critical role in all of Israel's conflicts. Reconnaissance, sabotage, counterterrorism, intercepting weapons smuggling ships. The works.
Absolutely. And the name itself, Shayetet 13, meaning 13th flotilla, it's not random. The sources say the original members used to meet on the 13th of each month, commemorating some past action. And their motto, as the bat emerges from darkness, as the blade cuts the silence, as the grenade explodes enraged, it really captures their whole ethos, doesn't it? It's quite something that even today, this elite unit openly acknowledges its origins, trace back to those former Italian Royal Navy Special Forces.
So looking back at everything we've unpacked here, what does it all mean? We've really dug into this complex, unofficial alliance. It didn't just provide critical resources and training at a crucial moment. It fundamentally shaped how a modern naval special forces unit developed. This is a striking example, isn't it? How skilled individuals, even in a really politically charged environment, can transfer vital knowledge across borders and leave this lasting strategic legacy.
It absolutely is. And it really leaves you with a question to think about. How do these kinds of historical collaborations, the ones that often happen in the shadows, unacknowledged, how might they still be subtly influencing current military thinking, current doctrines, maybe even international relations, long after the events themselves have faded from the public eye?
Something to definitely consider. We hope you've enjoyed this deep dive, focusing on the precise details of this, well, really surprising historical connection. You should now have a pretty solid foundation to explore it even further if you wish.